I've been in the industry for 15 years now, and I've worked with so many people. Dude, I have seen everything.
From 750 to 9,000.
Yeah.
How did you learn to get to where your pricing's at now?
I hustled so freaking much. All of a sudden, like, adopted this personality, and this personality was not me.
What do you bring to the table now that's completely different?
The choices that I make now are so egoless, like actually egoless.
You attract your ideal clients when you actually become a confident version of yourself.
That right there is what you need. We should be investing in ourselves. However, that does not look the same for everyone.
How do you do that?
You're digging deep.
Today, I sit down with Sarah Benner from Perigee Photo Co., based out of York, Pennsylvania. I knew I needed to have Sarah on the podcast because of her holistic view of the wedding industry and wedding photo space. She has some really important perspective on education in the creative and wedding spaces. She knows what to look out for and things to take into consideration when looking to invest. This is such a valuable conversation for anyone who is looking to get into wedding filmmaking, photography, or is interested in investing in education for your creative desires. Let's get into the episode.
Welcome back to Silo Podcast. I'm Austin, and I'm here with
Sarah Benner.
Oh man. Sarah, you have a special talent. And you said that you can do something with your tongue that you can't, that no one else can do. So I think I need to hear it because it's not like the curl tongue and it's not like the clover or whatever. So I just need to see it.
So I'm just gonna do it.
Hey, yo. And you said no one else can do that?
Literally only my mother. She's the only person that I have been able to find that can actually do it.
And your kids can't?
Nobody else. My kids cannot.
Okay.
No one.
Huh.
So it's a random little fun fact about me.
So welcome to Silo Podcast. If you didn't,
She's here.
If you learned nothing from this, realize how cool Sarah is.
My tongue and I are here.
Oh, Sarah, please get us, like, you are a wedding photographer. You also shoot couples. Can you tell me more just about your approach? Because I think something special that you have is just your like passion for humanity, but then also like the depth that you go with your clients and how they become your friends probably afterwards.
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. I always like to say that human connection is at the like heart of what I do. And I think it took me a long time to, I think, realize that and figure out that that was my driving force for my creativity, but also the relationships that I build with my couples. And so I like to always kind of say, like, my business is Perigee Photo Co. That's how you say it, because some people don't know that it's Perigee is how you say it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know what the word perigee means. The word perigee means that is the points in which the moon is closest to Earth in orbit. And so when I bring people into our world, it is really important for me to do my best to facilitate a space to help them feel at home so they can feel like themselves, and they can look like themselves, and they can be in front of the camera like themselves. Every wedding is different. Every couple is different. And I feel like in this industry, a lot of it is like almost factory produced. It can be very factory produced or just one in, one out, one in, one out. And I don't want anybody to ever feel like that in our world and in our orbit, if that makes sense.
Why is that? Why, what are you countering in the world that like gets you to care so deeply?
I want people to feel seen. I want them to feel heard. I want their love to be fully documented the way that it actually is.
It's not just a number of weddings that you take on a year kind of thing.
I don't like basic. I don't like anything basic.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds very basic and maybe cliche, but I truly don't. And so it's really important to me that I'm curating an experience that is totally the blueprint of that couple's story. Yeah.
How do you do that?
You're digging deep.
Sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry.
Not sorry. So I give a lot of myself, which I think that over the years I have had to rein in a little bit, and I've had to cut back a little bit, because when you invest so much of yourself into this business, when it's not met, you can feel deprived a little bit or not seen. And so from the get-go, from the inquiry process, from that consultation, from that first email that's going out to them, I am literally giving my heart. Like they're basically just like they're just receiving a plate of my heart. And I am asking them very intentional questions. Like my consultations, like that is where it is born. That is where it begins. It is not just, hey, let me talk about pricing. Let me talk about our experience. No, it is like, hey, before we even talk about photography, I want to ask you about you. Like I want to know, like the first question I ask literally is, when you imagine your wedding day, like the two of you just like floating from minute to minute, how do you want to feel? Like, what do you want to see? Like, what do you want to smell? Like, give me an idea of the whole essence of the day that you're going for. And it's so great because as soon as I do that, I see my couples just kind of like go, and
right.
Just kind of like,
It's very disarming.
Yeah. Right.
It's not just, oh yeah, so here are my prices. They're, X, X, and X.
Right.
And no, it's like, oh, you're not just talking about money?
Yes.
I mean, I'm not your 14th wedding this year.
Yeah.
What?
Exactly. Right. Like I don't want them to feel that like my consultations are scripted and that it's the same every single time. I want them to be like, oh, wait, she's kind of like a friend. Like she's actually asking us about us.
Yeah.
She's not asking about like our budget or, like what's your timeline like or how many hours do you think that you need?
Yeah.
That comes at the end. Like that's once we like get to like the logistics, we talk about those things. But yeah, I want them to feel comfortable enough to open up with me and to talk to me. And I know I can't force everyone to be like 100% transparent with me, and that's totally fine. But if I can just like a little bit get in there. And I think that like just throughout my whole life too, as a human being, that is just the way I've always been. As a kid, I was talking to everyone. I was connecting with everyone. A lot of people didn't like me and I didn't even know it because I was just like so nice to everyone and just like trying to like, I don't know. And so I don't hold any of my personality back when it comes to the business as well, which I think is kind of important because I think, again, being in this industry, you have half of the educational space saying like, you should like withhold, like don't be as bubbly, don't be as positive. Yeah. And then you have the other half that's like, no, that's your brand. Like let your personality flow 100%.
Yeah.
And that's the side that I'm on.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, we're going to get into this later about like how you can water down your brand and stuff like that to be, but I think now in the age of like personalities and stuff like that, like, what do you miss from like just being yourself? I mean, nothing. I feel like to actually be yourself is to fully express yourself both in creativity, but then also your personality is just as much a part of what happens on their day.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And so why hold that back? If they want to work with you, they want all of you.
Right.
Or hopefully they do.
Hopefully. Yeah, right. Exactly.
And like, it's going to turn some people off, but then you're going to have your real people that actually want you.
Yes. And I will tell you, like, I feel so lucky because, I've been doing this. I've been in the industry for 15 years now, and I've worked with so many people. And there is maybe 2 situations out of hundreds of weddings that I have done where I'm like, ooh, I would not want to do that again. Every other single couple has either become a friend or a longtime client or their wedding day was a moment in time that I knew that I was there to gift them with something, and then we went our separate ways, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But there is something so rewarding about being able to like give that to them in that moment.
Oh, so good. I mean, please keep going. But at the same time, like it's just, you attract your ideal clients when you actually become a confident version of yourself.
Yes.
I feel like,
yes.
And when you are that like professional, like you don't know, like the couple doesn't know who you actually are.
Right.
And so you could swing in a way that could annoy them day of because you actually spend the most time with them then.
Right.
Or it could like, then they change and you can actually be friends with them.
Yes.
But it takes the wedding day to bring that out of you, which is just like, just be a friend the entire time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that clients don't always necessarily know that, which why would they? Normally this is their first wedding.
I was going to say, you only do it once, hopefully.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so, I think that's also why I like to be very upfront with my random personality and just very transparent personality, because I want them to know this is what you're going to get on your wedding day. Like, I'm not like just like this on social media. Like, this is truly who I am face to face.
Right.
So if you like this and this is the energy you want for your photography experience, then sick. Like, we're it for you.
Yeah.
But if this is not what you want, that's fine. You can go elsewhere. I know I can be too much sometimes. But I don't think they always realize, like, you spend all day with us. Even if we're on the outside, like, we're still by you. And so you're going to hear my voice all day. You're going to be getting, you're going to hear things from me, direction, family formals, all that kind of stuff. And so do you like it? Do you connect with it? Do you resonate with it? Awesome. If not, that's okay.
Talk to me about like, documentary, like wedding photography.
Yeah.
That's a topic you've talked about before.
Yeah.
So dive into that for me.
Okay. So this has been a roller coaster of a ride for me, I would say too. Because again, I've been in this for 15 years. So like, dude, I have seen everything. Like, I go back to the burlap and the lace and the pumpkin days, the chevron print. So like 2010 era. And at that point in time, like, photography, wedding photography, like, are you kidding me? The only option that you really had was not that. Like, documentary was not really trendy at that time.
Right.
And so when I first started, I started as a second photographer. And so for those first 3 years, I only did candids, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And that is really what documentary is. So I wasn't in charge. I wasn't directing people. I wasn't telling anyone what to do. And that is like where my love of photography came into play, was during those first 3 years. And I was like, wait, this is like really sick. Like, nobody even knows that I'm here. Nobody knows that I'm documenting this. They're just like existing.
So much less pressure for you and them.
Yes. And I think so documentary, I could say a million things about this, but the first thing I'll say is that there is, especially now with TikTok and Instagram and Pinterest and everything, there is such a standard, unfortunately, that couples feel like they have to fall under. And that can sometimes mean that you have more of a production heavy wedding day, photography wise, than a documentary style day. And I don't think that everybody knows that they actually can, it exists, that they can have a wedding day that is completely uninterrupted.
Yeah.
With the exception, of course, family groupings or friend groupings if they want it. And everything else, like ceremony and cocktail hour, things like that. But like, they can absolutely have a day that just feels like a love party. It's possible. And so it is so exciting to, like, when I do get weddings, because what I'll tell couples sometimes is, you have an option, like, I'm flexible, I'm adaptable. If you feel like, all right, I want the day to be about 80% documentary, with the exception of like, yes, we have a wedding party. We do want those groupings. We want the family groupings. Okay, great. Then I know that. But then I have couples that are like, we want 5 minutes of portraits of like the couple, and that is it. And I've done weddings like that. And I'm trying to get more weddings like that. But the relief, I think, that those couples feel that day and how light the air is creates space for me as a creative to go absolutely wild.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I'm like running all around the space in weird angles. Like, you may see me on a roof, honestly. Like, I don't know. I'm in like a hole in the ground, just like peeking up from somewhere. And so just as human beings, like, when you just let them be, then they feel comfortable being themselves. And then that's where the true emotion comes through, the true interactions come through. Another thing that I tell our couples on consultations as well is, like, my goal is to not just make pretty photos. Like, I'm not just trying to like, oh, like, romantic, like, here's cutesy little like
because
portrait
that serves
photos.
you almost.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm just here for portfolio
Correct.
images.
Yes. And which also, I don't know if you know this, but on my website, I have a little slogan that says, for the people, not the portfolio.
Hey, yo.
Hey.
Okay. All right.
So you got that.
Yeah.
You got that. I want them to know that they can exist as is, and like, they can have those pretty photos, but I want it to be that they have every single person documented in their gallery. I want every single corner and fold to be documented. So those first moments when they're seeing their, favorite cousin for the first day, or like their grandparent for the first time, the moments that are just completely missed,
Right.
that people don't know are actually happening.
It might be an ugly composition, but it means the world.
Oh my gosh,
that
yeah.
that,
which I don't
you know,
care.
yeah.
Yeah. And at this point, like everybody does like tilt shifts and
Sure, yeah.
blurry photos and all the fun things because people are trying to like, you know, we're trying to get back to the like unproduced look, I guess you could say. But yeah, like sloppy, who cares? Like it's a moment that exists in time. And that photo may be so important to someone. And I may look at it as a creative and be like, oh, that sucks. Like, what the heck? Like that lighting was awful. Or, you know, that's like too grainy, or the shadow was bad on the person's face, but like I still give that photo because they still deserve to see like that moment that happened.
Right. And and so often it's not a reflection of you that you need in that photo. It's like, no, it truly is about grandma seeing the new wife, like, you know, or the bride just being there.
Absolutely.
And
it's a gathering.
Yeah. It's a collection of images. Like that doesn't have to be what defines you as a photographer.
Right.
Like that one photo that doesn't make any sense to put on your portfolio. It's like, no, it's about that.
Yeah.
I have found, and I have a story about how I projected onto an elopement couple that I had recently, and I feel really bad. And I just want to share this with you. Because as a photographer, I'm like, oh yeah, you know, your day is so stressful as a couple. All you care about is like good photos. Let's get you what you need.
Yeah.
And in the consultation call, they're like, oh, actually, this is like the least stressful part of everything that we do.
Yeah.
Like actually the wedding day where we're going to be in Maryland and we're going to go on a dock and get married by our best friend is actually like really chill. We're actually going to have you over. We're going to like make you steak. We'll kind of go whenever.
That literally sounds so great.
It's so great. And I took it for granted because I'm like, oh, you guys are so stressed about your day. This is like, oh, this is terrible. And I'm like, I'm the one that's stressed, I guess, because you guys are super chill.
Yeah.
And I think as photographers, like I need to learn to read the room a little bit better and not assume that they're even stressed. Because like, while it's good to like match the stressed energy so that I'm not just like, oh yeah, guys, it'll be so easy. And they're over here like mega stressed about their day because maybe they are super rigid. I like went into it like, okay, we're going to get through this together.
Yeah.
And I was definitely projecting that like they needed something that they didn't.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it didn't end up like ruining anyone's day or images or anything like that. But I went into that consultation with one thought, and it was just the complete opposite of what they thought. And it was a learning lesson for me, and it wasn't terrible or anything.
For
but
sure. And they
like,
probably didn't even know.
No, and they probably didn't. I mean, it's
Like,
the only
I'm
time
sure
getting
they
married,
didn't even pick
hopefully,
up-
right?
Yeah, that was just you.
Yeah, but it was just an interesting experience of me being humbled of like, no, not everyone is like this. And I haven't done a ton of like elopements,
Right.
Which are probably like, you know, the less stressful version of a wedding anyway. I'm sure you can speak into that.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
it was just like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to be crazy hype man when they already know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
So.
And you had mentioned about reading the room. Like that's, I think, another really big key part in what we do and documentary style, and also just like evolving as a photographer too. Like it's okay that happened. Like you learned from it and now you know, okay, great. Like you have to make mistakes to learn how to be better.
This episode is sponsored by Rook Photography. It's 2025. Maybe you made a resolution for yourself this year that you're only going to speak positively about yourself and your body this year. Maybe you're working to improve that in this year. Well, what better way to showcase what you are committing to yourself this year than to be a part of one of her shoots? Sam does a lot of portraiture, but specializes in boudoir photography, where she has over 400 pieces in her client closet that fit all body types and all confidence levels. I think one of the coolest things that she offers is just how positive and radiant she is during these sessions, and you will not leave feeling doubtful of yourself. So if you're interested in a little bit more self-love this year, consider booking with Sam. She will not let you down, and she has so many different options in pricing as well as specials that happen throughout the year. So if you're listening to this and it's the end of 2025, it is still a perfect time to get photos taken of yourself because you deserve it. Now back to the video.
Bring us back in time and tell me more about like your history, because you've been in this for 15 years.
Yes.
How have the times changed? What did you do starting out that now you're like, oh, I probably wouldn't do that again? Because I made that mistake myself and I've only been in it for a few years. So what are some lessons you've learned?
So the first thing is actually gear wise, believe it or not. And I recently was reminded of this because, you know, Time Hop Facebook reminds you of photos that like you took a long time ago. And so a wedding that I did in like 2010, So I used to, at that point, I was only using the 70 to 200,
Yeah.
the white lens.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm like looking back the other day, I'm like, why are all these photos literally like up in these people's faces? And then I was like, oh, that's right. I was only using the 70 to 200, but the 70 was enough. And then like some people and I remember people would like want like closer up photos and I'd be like, oh, well, I just like can't, you know? So a gear thing is definitely something that I have learned over the years, like what works best for me and what I can achieve with the gear that I want. Cause everybody's different in their preferences and things like that. But yeah, I mean, definitely being in this industry for a long time, like I said, like I have seen it all and I've learned so many things from the beginning until now. And honestly, I'm still learning.
15 years of full time?
So the first couple of years were, I say 15 years in the industry, meaning like I did the first 3 years as a second shooter.
Yeah.
And then after that, then I had my son. And then right after that, I was like, ooh, let me just like try this full time and see if this works.
Yeah.
So I turned 21. I was pregnant a month later. And then I was like, I'll put a little dealio out on Facebook and see if people latch onto this.
Yeah.
And somehow I booked 13 weddings of my own the following year.
That's
Just
crazy.
like that.
Tell me more about that story.
Yeah, that was something else. And I was not, for those weddings, I was not using the 70 to 200.
Okay.
I did invest in the cheaper like Canon 50 millimeter. And back in the day, that was only like $50.
Ooh, yeah.
So it was
that's
like,
awesome.
it was really cheap. But that thing got me through all of my weddings.
100%.
Yeah. So I just dove in. Like I literally dived head first and I had no idea what I was doing as a sole photographer because there wasn't a second shooter with me. It was just me, which that's, I think, another mistake that I made. I definitely wish I would have always had the reassurance of a second photographer, which I did bring my husband in 2017. But up until then, it was kind of just if the couple wanted it. So not that that's like a mistake. I think that was just like a learning thing that I had made along the way.
Just a little backup.
What's that?
It's like a little backup.
Yeah,
you know?
right. Yeah. And like if I want to be like creating these like super like emotion heavy images, like you need two people because you need, I don't know, double the images of emotions happening in different places, or you need the same thing, but two different angles of it happening, you know? So yeah, it's been a whirlwind since then. I mean, there have definitely been things that I have said and done in the past that just I would never ever do today, you know, like contracts that I just like made up that were not probably like lawyer approved. Like, you know, you learn, you go through all of it. But at the time, I didn't have any mentors. Like there was not really anybody that was doing it the way that I wanted to do it. And especially in this area, like they're just, it wasn't, the wedding industry wasn't an aesthetic thing. Like Instagram wasn't up yet. Also, it was just Facebook.
Right.
So I had nowhere to turn to learn things. It was all trial and error for myself. But that's honestly who I am as a person. And that's fine. Like I always learn the hard way. Speaking of time hop, literally yesterday, my Facebook reminded me that in like, I think it was 2009 or 2010, I literally posted a status and said, why do I always learn everything the hard way?
Don't we all?
Yeah, I know.
It's always like the past Facebook self that gets you with the weirdest
I hate
stuff.
it. I like am screenshotting these things all the time. Like I need to report this to Facebook and be like, stop reminding me of this, please.
I'm going to cringe too hard one of these days.
Yeah, right. And so, I had nowhere to look to. Now, the person that I had worked under, I'll kind of like share a little bit about this because I think that it's just really cool how life connects you with opportunities and people that you're meant to before you even know that you're supposed to. So after I graduated high school, I went to cosmetology school. And which is random, I know. That's another fun fact that people don't ever really know. So I went there, made friends. The one girl got married and I asked her, I was like, do you mind? Like I was in the wedding, but I'm like, do you mind if I just like bring my camera for funsies and just like take some photos? And she was like, yeah, I don't care. That's fine. So, which actually, again, kind of funny because there was a main photographer there. And if anybody were to do that with me today, I'd be like, my contract states that I am the sole photographer. But anyway, so after I took the fun photos. He had actually found them. This photographer had found them, and he had just moved to the area from California. He was a paparazzi photographer.
Okay.
Paparazzi photographer. And so he had found me on Facebook, saw the photos, and he was like, do you want to be a second shooter? And I was like, a what? What is that? And then I was like, I get paid for that? And I just gave you the photos? And he was like, yeah, like your work's great. Like, I think you'd be a really good fit. And I was like, okay. And then that is literally how I just went right into the industry and started working under him. So shout out Thomas Beeman. I always credit him. Thomas Beeman, Camp Hill, for being just like the bomb.com cool. and asking me to work for him.
And then how did that in turn get you like 13 weddings in your first full-time year? Because I think that's a huge step. Like that a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I eased into it with second shooting. Yeah. But like 13 in 1 year, obviously you have some work to show or something.
I did. Yeah. I mean, I definitely had a lot of portfolio work to show for it, but I just also feel like, and again, not to like, I don't want to like toot my own horn, but I just think that what I was,
spot to do it at.
I just think that like what I was doing at that time and what I do today too is different. And especially back then, like that was so much more seen because nobody was doing it this way. Like natural light is like a huge thing for me, and it always has been a huge thing for me and like for my art. And so back then it was very flash heavy, which is fine. Right. Everybody has their own style, totally fine. But I think that people were really loving what they were seeing in my natural light work, and like they wanted that. And because I had already had 3 years of candid experience, they wanted that. And so they just went out on a whim. Also, I was only charging like $750. So, I mean, that's a steal.
That's a steal, yeah.
That's a steal. So yeah.
How did you learn to get to where your pricing's at now?
That's like such a hard question because just obviously,
So what is your pricing now to start?
Well, I'll say on average, we are about $8,000 for like a 9-hour wedding day. Cause 9 hours is about normally like what we see.
Yeah.
But
so from 750 to 9,000.
Yeah.
How'd you get there? Cause that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think experience obviously is a huge thing. Really getting your foot in the door in as many weddings, venue settings, and locations as possible. Because if you can build up your experience, personally, I think then you can charge a lot more because you have done it. You have been in it. You have navigated all the dynamics of family members. You have navigated all of the different lighting settings. Like you can literally say like, I'm a chameleon, I'll blend in anywhere and I will do whatever you want.
Right. And being at all those venues too, it's like if you've been everywhere, you also can just really quickly adapt to whatever happens at those places.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that I definitely, at that time too, I think me really learning and understanding natural light, going back to that, I was able to sell that actually. So I would talk about, back then even, I would talk about natural light in consultations, and I would talk about like how I'm creating art on your wedding day and what I'm doing with the light. Even in the reception, you know, like the flash is still coming off and I'm still like doing light play and all of these fun things. But I think experience as far as pricing goes is probably one of the bigger things. And I think sometimes there's a misconception that people think it's gear. Like the more you invest in gear, the higher you should charge yourself, or the more that you invest in education, the higher that you should raise your prices. And I disagree.
So then with all of that, like, tell me, I have this question of like, do you give your photos to your vendors? Do you give photos to the venue? What's your thoughts on that? Because I don't even know if I have a solidified idea of what's appropriate, what's normal.
Absolutely. Yeah. So everyone's different for this. I am in the boat where I just give it all out.
Yeah.
I know this sounds bad. I don't care. Like, I really don't care.
It's free marketing, right?
That's what I think. And this is actually like somewhat of a controversial topic in the industry. I know that some people will probably listen to this and be like, are you serious? But hey, to each their own. I think everyone's different. I have just found so much success doing it throughout all these years that I'm like, it's so easy for me to go into PickTime, add in the vendor's email, and send. Right. And then I just give them some direction. You know, I tell them like, you know, just be sure to tag us, of course. And then I send out sneak peeks after weddings.
Yeah.
So they get about like 150 to 200 images within the first 10 days. And then they get the full gallery in like 2 months. And so when I send, the email, I'm like, just please make sure to pull the photos from the finals, not the sneak peeks, because, they're just sneak peeks. You're not doing all the like final retouching and things.
Sure.
And I have found so much like success, and people like vendors are always so happy to receive them. I mean, of course, I've ran into my fair share of people that are demanding. There's some demanding vendors, and I think that the communication needs to be like laid out beforehand. So if I meet the vendors day of, like I'm telling them like, here's what this process will look like. Like you're gonna get photos, you're gonna get them in X amount of time, and then the full gallery will be sent out within 2 months.
Yeah.
So then that way I don't have people at my email doorstep like, are you done yet? Like 3 days later. Are you done yet? I really want to see their photos.
Yeah.
Which has happened many times.
I believe it.
Yes, many, many times.
What is it like? Is that a common thing that you will like try to touch base with other vendors that are a part of their wedding beforehand and just like get them in the door and knowledge on what you're doing?
Yes, absolutely. On their questionnaire, I ask for every single vendor's email. That way I have that ahead of time. Then I will try to find them on Instagram. I don't always do this. Like I'm not like great at routines, but I try my best. I will find their Instagram account day of, and then possibly post a photo of the couple and tag, each vendor. So then that way they're just also in my recently tagged people in Instagram, which makes it so easy for day of. And then I will meet them day of if they're there. So like hair and makeup, I'm always meeting.
Sure.
Florist sometimes, planner for sure. And the way that I present my personality to the couple is the same thing that I do with the vendors, because in this world of the wedding industry, it can be very like, I don't know, like territorial almost. It's so strange. Why? Because we're all of a service,
right?
Vendor, like servicing a couple that has hired us. Like, let's all be friends and like create a really amazing experience for this couple. So I will try to be extra nice to all of them and talk to them. Even if it's chaotic, like I will still at some point try to like go introduce myself. And generally they're pretty receptive. Sometimes, you get some of the people that are not.
Yeah, and those are probably the same people that are just like in it for the gig and they're setting up and they're like,
I can read that. I can smell that from a mile away.
Yeah.
I know that right away for sure.
Yeah, and it's just like, when they're not receptive, it's like, I'm just doing my job. Get out of my lane, lady, or something like that.
Oh my gosh, yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, I don't know if you know this or not, but this is like a funny little vendor story that I'll share. I'm known as the girl that fell in the water fountain. So
I need to hear it.
So Historic Shady Lane, and it was because of a vendor.
Oh.
So Historic Shady Lane, if you've been there, there's a fountain that's right outside of the like men den or whatever they call it. And there was a videographer that was hired last minute, and he was probably in his 60s. He showed up in dad jeans, New Balance sneakers, the whole getup, right? Yeah. Old cameras. And he was very rude from the get-go, but I tried. I was like, I'm Sarah, so nice to meet you. Like, please let me know if I'm in your way. Like I do a whole spiel basically of trying to be respectful of the videographers. And I could just tell I was like, this is not going to be good. He does not like me. And so we get to the first look, and she is like the bride's starting to walk towards the groom, and he yells very loudly in the middle of this happening, "You better not get in my way, Sarah. You better not get in my way." And it startled me so much that I turned and I literally stepped right into the fountain and fell into the fountain. But I have a video of this. I fell in, and in the same moment that I fell in, I jumped out. And I still somehow got the first look. And I had a second shooter, thankfully, but I made it out. My feet were wet the entire day. So right after this first look happens, I am just like beside myself. Like, and at that point, like I think that was like 2017 around there. Like I was confident, but I wasn't as confident as I am now. If that would happen today, ooh, buddy, no. No, that would not have flown with me. So right after this, we go over to do their private vows nearby. And again, right as she's about to share her vows, he literally says to my second shooter and I, "You guys better shut up." And we weren't even talking. He's like, "You guys better shut up. You better not talk." And I'm like, what? We're not even talking. But anyway, so for the rest of the day, it was horrible. But the cherry on top for this is, I would say 6+ months, 9 months later, I get a text from the bride, and all it is it's a link to the part of the video of me falling into the fountain. And she says, "This is all we've gotten so far." And I was like, wait, what? That's it?
He just sent them a
He
video.
sent them, and he was like, "Oh, I wanted to send you the first look, but it's literally of me falling in the fountain." So I've gained many followers over that video back on Instagram back in the day, and then I shared it to TikTok like a couple of years ago, and of course, like people love that stuff. So anyway, that's just a really good example of a vendor that was not willing to just like jive with my personality and be really disrespectful. So
wow,
fun story.
I love seeing when like a good wedding like vendor group gets together. I see like at the end of the night they have like a 0.5 selfie of all of them. I'm like, that is what I want. I want like hair and makeup, photographer, videographer, just be like the pals. Cause then it just like everything goes so smoothly.
So smoothly.
And
you know what? It's funny you say that because I personally miss those days. I don't have it as much anymore. Back in like 2014 is when I got married, and my makeup artist is my now best friend, Veronica. Shout out Vera Lee. Best makeup artist in Central PA. And so she started in the industry like in and around 2014, and we built a vendor family literally from scratch. And it was her and I, and that we added in more people and we added in more people. And most of the couples that were coming to us, they knew us for the vendor family. Everyone.
Yeah.
DJ, catering team, hair, videographers. Like it was so much fun. But that's when I was doing more work in and around here where there was like more local vendors. It's a little bit more difficult. A lot of our work's in Philly, so it's a little bit more difficult to do it out there.
Sure.
But you're so right though, because again, clients don't realize how much of a benefit there is to hiring all of these vendors that know each other, where they're creating a really positive day of experience. Like it's hard to express that to them before their wedding day. They don't get it until they're on the wedding day, and then they're like, "Oh, this is the best thing ever."
And they're just all hanging out and they're already all friends. So it's not awkward to like try to make them all friends or like have just like the day, like the couple day of being like, "Hey, here are these two people."
Yes, it's not awkward at all.
Like catering team, meet photographer. They have these needs and you have these needs.
Yes.
Like being a full service wedding like party group would be so cool.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And like vendors were like, we were all like taking like photos together, like, especially Veronica and I, like so many photos, so many videos. And like our clients were literally sharing it on their stories, sharing it on their posts, adding us into their like wedding day posts.
Yeah.
And it was the coolest thing ever, because it's like, we are family. We're your family. We're your vendor family. Like we are here to treat you like family.
Yeah.
So and that's, I think, like the beauty of this industry and the beauty of like what I do and what we do is like not just connecting with couples, but connecting and networking with other people who are just as awesome.
I mean, and just in general too, you guys are at it for, a close to 12-hour day. It's like you better get along or better start to become friends, because if not, you're going to be butting heads the entire time.
Absolutely.
So it's like a little bit of trauma bonding. If something goes wrong, maybe that's way easier. If something goes wrong, that's out of your control, and you're just like, "Hey, that was really weird. Let's talk about it."
That's so true. We used to commiserate all the time about like things that would happen.
Grandma
or like
dancing, that's really weird.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Tell me some experiences of like what good cohesion looks like. Maybe like, because video and photo often have to butt heads, and like you can get out of the way for video, but video can't like,
correct,
move around you.
Yeah.
Like you can fully be above them and shoot and like all around.
Yeah.
Like what does a good cohesion look like
Absolutely.
for that for you?
So the first thing I'm going to say about this is just to give a really good point in which I have grown. And transparency is key for me. So back in the day, I was not great with this. I wasn't. And I was like, I want to get my photos. I need to get my photos. I need to be able to get in there and do it the way that I do it. Like, not that I wasn't rude, but sometimes I would not physically step in the way, but I would be like, this is the way that I do it. You need to kind of work around me. Now, that was when I was a wee little baby. I have grown tremendously. And so now there's like a whole process to this for me. So when I speak with our couples, generally about like 95% of the time photo is hired before video, unfortunately, which that's a whole other story for a whole other time. Because video was great. But I will communicate with them. If you are like, I actually have it on our, I call it the client lounge. So after someone books with us, they will receive what's called the client lounge. And it just has like all this information of like what the experience looks like with us, answers questions that they may have throughout the experience. So I tell them, when you're hiring a videographer, if you are getting one, I really, really advise you to ask them about their approach. It is so vital, because if you love what we do, and if you want that for your entire like media day of,
right,
you have to make sure that that videographer matches that. And that's from experience of me butting heads with people that were the polar opposite of the way that I was doing, trying to do, you know, very candid approach, trying to do that documentary approach, when videographers were trying to do the literal opposite and creating like a Hollywood film, you know?
right. They're scripting every moment. They know exactly,
Yes.
they already have like the literal like timeline of what
Yes.
their scenes are going to look like in
Correct.
their edit.
Yes.
And they're like, yeah, I'm just filling in
Yeah.
as I go, and not letting life live out.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. And so it would frustrate me. And I think that that's, going back to like when I used to be bad about it, I think that it would frustrate me because I knew what the couple wanted, and I knew the couple did not want that out of the videographer.
Yeah, because you were in there
So
first.
I was there
Yeah.
advocating for them, and that still happens today, you know? Like there's still multiple occasions where I'm hearing from vendor friends that like a couple may hire the wrong videographer and they were really, really upset and had a really bad experience because of it, because they didn't think about really figuring out what the approach of that videographer is. So I try to be very open about that up front, instead of when it's too late. And it's helped. And I, of course, have like really great videographer recommendations that I know are people that will match our style.
Right.
And so jiving and like vibing with a videographer day of, like, it looks like letting them do if they need to do something and stepping out of the way, and then me stepping in and doing what I need to do, and them stepping out of the way. And it's like we don't even have to say anything,
No, yeah.
like at all.
Yeah, if
It's
I'm
just
done,
like,
I'm going to back up
yeah.
and let you in.
Right. And what I love about it is, honestly, I actually kind of love it, because I get to be like a second shooter
Yeah.
for like a moment, because I'm like, oh no, please do your thing.
Right.
Please do your thing. Take 5-10 minutes.
Exactly.
And I will have fun and go back to my roots of just being a second photographer. So I actually kind of enjoy it.
Yeah, it gets the
but-
pressure off you a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
So for the photographer that is just starting out in weddings, how important is it to have that like kind of guide, that client lounge that you talked about for them? Like that's something you build up with experience for sure, but like that just also adds to your personal brand of like, hey, here's like a worksheet or like guide of what I'm about. It's like, I don't know, it's just like a tangible thing, and it shows that you're put together.
Yeah.
How important is that to you, and how long did you get that to work?
Yeah, so I didn't have it forever. That's definitely something that I would say I brought in, what was it, like maybe 2019-ish, COVID era. But I feel like it's sometimes our job to educate them, maybe not even educate them, but to give up all the information up front, so there is no like mistakes or like misunderstandings. And then in addition to that, like on this client lounge, I have a preferred vendor section, kind of how I was talking about videography. I have it for all vendors. And that is me trying my hardest to curate a day of experience that I know from my experience is going to go seamlessly. And if you hire these vendors, I know it's going to go seamlessly. Like I can say with 100% like trust, like it's going to be perfect. And so I personally think, just for my brand and for what I do, transparency and communication and information all up front is the most important. It also lessens your workload, because back in the day when I wasn't doing it, of course I had so many emails of questions of like,
Saves
when are we
so
doing
much
this?
time.
When are we doing that? When do we go here? When's engagement session? Like I have an entire section on engagement session, and I tell them upfront in the consultations as well. My consultations are like over an hour long. Like they are very thorough. Like I just throw all the information at them. So on the client lounge, it's a reminder. All right, so engagement sessions, I only book on weekdays. To start the process, just send me a quick email and tell me that you're ready to start the process. Then I'm going to send you an engagement session questionnaire, and then, go through the whole thing. But if I wasn't sending that information, I would have constant emails. When do we do the engagement session?
Right.
Or like, what do we wear? Or where do we go? Like, it just helped
It's just like a
Lessens the workflow.
standard automation.
Yeah.
It answers all the questions potentially. And if you do have questions, you just email you.
Oh, absolutely, for
And it's
sure.
way easier than the
It's a
20
one-stop
thing.
shop. I tell them to bookmark it throughout the entire wedding process with us and then get rid of it at the end.
It's so helpful. And I know a lot of people that are like just starting out, like my age kind of deal, and like are starting to build that out like a wedding guide. That it's like a full book that they send.
Yeah.
Like when you actually pay your deposit or whatever,
that
you're
too.
gonna get like a little welcome gift or whatever, and then you get like a wedding guide from them filled with their own photos, and it just looks like gorgeous, and it's not just like a Word document, which what I would do or something. Like you put time and love in it, and hopefully it doesn't have to change that often for you.
Oh no, it doesn't change ever really at all. Honestly.
I mean, maybe you update your photos or whatever is in there. But
I actually
like,
don't even have photos on there.
Oh, there you go.
It is. I use Show It. It is a plus site, and it is right there. It's a one-stop shop.
It's awesome.
I mean, of course, it's like branded with like my fonts and colors.
Yeah, exactly.
And fun little like graphic marks, but like here's the information that you need to know. Just take it, you know. But I do think that, especially for people that are just starting out, I do personally think that it would be very beneficial because it kind of just like that's something that you would learn. Not everyone, but you would learn maybe later on in the process, and that's like a little tip of like ways that you can make your workflow a little bit more easier earlier on.
What other workflow things have you discovered over the years? 'Cause I think a lot of people are all about efficiency and haven't figured that out, or they're at the point where I can't be spending 20 hours responding to emails over the whole year or something. You know, like it just needs to be, hey, I'm starting to get up in the, 20 or 30 weddings. I'm starting to hit capacity, or I'm starting to take on too many at a low cost. Like that would honestly probably step up your pricing too, of like, hey, I've got the one-stop shop kind of deal that just takes care of you, and the time that it took to make that is also going to be charged to you.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there any other efficiencies that you've learned?
I mean, first and foremost, having a CRM is a non-negotiable, no matter what. Honeybook, Dubsado. Do not use Excel. Like you need to have an automation system. You need to have a CRM. And that is something that I did not have for probably the first 8 years, I would say. Everything was paper contract. Everything. People were coming into my house for consultations. There was no Zoom. There was no workflow. There was none of that. It was
Client relationship manager.
Yes.
CRM.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just, I wouldn't even know that. I don't even know what it stands for. Anyway, I should. But anyway, that right there is what you need. That consists of so much automation, but also personalization. So you are, if people are, sorry, go ahead.
What do you use?
I use Dubsado.
Okay, Dubsado.
I'm a Dubsado fan through and through. So actually back in the day, and older photographers and wedding professionals will remember 17 Hats. Do you know 17 Hats?
No, but I heard the phrase before.
Yes.
Yeah.
So 17 Hats was kind of the earlier on wedding CRM system, but it was nothing like Honeybook and Dubsado. Like you could not customize things at all. It was just like contract invoice. That is it. It's very like fancy now, but I don't know what I would do without it. Truly, like it saves so much time because I just have one workflow in there. When somebody inquires, like it triggers that. I customize. I still customize like my initial email that gets sent out to speak directly to the client. Like I don't like boxy emails, but there's still part of it that's still the same for everyone. And then throughout the whole wedding process, then their entire workflow, things are just like getting sent. Like they're just like going over into their email. I don't have to think about it. But in addition to all of this, boundaries, I think is very important.
Talk to me about boundaries, Sarah. Talk to me about boundaries.
Yes. So I am I'm a big advocate of do not disturb. And
yes, amen.
Yep, I'm a big advocate of that. I've learned that more recently. But a couple of years ago, I started to really enforce communication only being done via email. Because what was happening is I was getting DMs, I was getting text messages of all of these different random things. Like, hey, what do you think about that? Hey, what do you think about this? When like random text at like 11 o'clock at night, like what time do you think our first look will be? That's not an answer I can just like tell you. I need to like look at your day of to be able to really come up with when I think your first look should happen comfortably. And so communication being kept to just email has like saved me so much time and has saved my life. And do not disturb because you best believe I use that.
As much as you want your clients to be like your friends and stuff.
Oh, for sure.
It's like, oh yeah, I'll just hand out my number to you.
Oh my
text
gosh,
me anytime as your friend. But then
absolutely. And I used to do that.
Yeah. And I think there's still tons of value in in being able to communicate as friends and like whenever you need to, but then also as a professional in your industry, it's like, but I can't be responding to your text at 9 p.m.
Yeah,
Like I'm with my
absolutely.
family. So like,
absolutely.
You know,
And
can't do that.
For sure. And I used to do that. Like I hustled so freaking much. That is just who I am. I have multiple entrepreneurs in my family as well. And so I hustled all the time. So I was on my phone all the time. Hence why I use Do Not Disturb now and why I basically try not to touch my phone because it annoys me now. But like my son was like, I kept thinking like, my son is literally going to have an image of me on my phone all through his childhood. I don't want this. This is gross. Like, that's not cool. Like, it's bedtime and I'm like on my phone with him.
Gotta respond to an email really quick.
Yes, or responding. Yes, and like in like that hustle culture era that I was in, I had this like, I don't even know who I was trying to please, whether it was me or the client, maybe just people pleasing, I guess, but I just felt like I had to respond right away. I couldn't just let it wait. I had to like, because I felt like that, I'm like, well, this is what I offered them. This is what they signed up for, right? So I have to keep following through with this and giving them all of me.
Yeah.
But
you're not their personal assistant.
Left.
That's not part of your job description.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So
do you schedule like messages to go out from like 9 to 5 kind of feel? Like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's one way to counter it is to be like, even if I am sending a message past 5 p.m. or whatever your work hours are, sometimes I'll schedule it for like 9:30 to the next morning just so that it's like, I am practicing what I preach as well.
Yeah, I don't do that.
This is not bad or
and
good.
I also like don't have like truly like when I said before, I'm not great at routines. I actually am someone who really lives day to day.
Yeah.
And I vibe with the weather. I vibe with the moon, like whatever I'm feeling that day. If I don't feel like doing it, I'm not going to do it.
Sure.
If I feel like doing it, I'm going to do it. Obviously with like meeting expectations and things, I'm not like going past deadlines and stuff, but I definitely don't email every single day.
Yeah.
And sometimes, yes, like it may be 9 p.m. and I wrapped up a wedding and I'm like, I want to send this wedding. I'm going to send like the goodbye email, like the final closing email, and I'll still do it.
Yeah.
Whatever. But if they respond or if I'm getting emails, I may not respond. So it's more of the emails coming out from me, not responding to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think I live in creative sprints as well.
Yeah,
it's like,
for sure.
I think we have different like motivations, you know, different times that like, I'm like, I get my most productive, most like in the zone work time is like from 9 to noon every day.
In the morning.
Yeah, in the morning.
Okay.
And like, as much as I am a night owl, I know that like that time is reserved for like more brain dead activities that are like just vegging out and stuff like that. And you have to have that awareness to know like, I'm going to be super productive now and I can get 4 galleries out in the morning. Just because I'm crazy or whatever.
And you know
knowing then I'm not going to be able to have the focus I can later on in the day.
Exactly.
Talk to me about your experience in the industry. You have a lot of industry stories, and especially in like the education space, because a lot of people want to get better quick, right? You know, I'm new to wedding photography. Is there an online workshop? Is there like a weekend that I can get away and learn from professionals? Like, what does that look like? Coming from you, because I know you have stories, and we don't have to name names, but
and I
like
won't.
just in general, like, is there caution there?
So first thing I'm going to say when it comes to wedding education and being a new photographer, and should you just like buy any course or sign up for any retreat? The answer is
I was gonna say because people want to invest in themselves, you know?
They do, and yes, like I think that we should be investing in ourselves. However, that does not look the same for everyone. I think that there is more benefit to just getting behind your camera as often as you can. You will learn more that way than just purchasing a course for $10,000 that guarantees you're going to book 50 weddings for the following year. That's bogus. Like, so much to say about this. So you should always, when you are considering investing in a mentor, investing in a course, retreat, whatever it may be, do your homework before you do that. Any new photographer that's listening to this, please, for the love of all things, do your homework before. You need to reach out to past attendees, past clients, past customers. You need to be speaking with the teacher themselves, asking for credentials. Show me the proof that these attendees had success after, or these customers actually booked 50 weddings. Like, where's the proof? Or how long have you been in this industry? That's a big one. That's where I really get going, because I do not understand people jumping. It's too easy. It's too easy in this industry for people to do weddings for 3 years and then all of a sudden think that they can teach other people. You absolutely should never be doing that. You are actually making the industry worse by doing that. You are probably giving out false information, and maybe information that worked for you, but that does not mean it's going to work for other people. It's not the end all be all. And so you need to be really conscious about who you are giving your money to when it comes to education. You should just be getting behind the camera. You should be asking for opportunities. I think that there's benefit if you struggle with like the business part of it, because I know that there's a lot of creatives, and the business part is like, well, I don't know where to start with like the CRM, or like I don't know how to like speak in emails or whatever it may be. I think that maybe there's a benefit then to you finding someone who specializes in that only then.
Sure.
Don't just like go to a retreat or go to a workshop. You need to find out for you personally what you need work on, and really tailor to that and really focus on that, and find someone who has really great credentials to match that and to guarantee where your money is going.
Yeah.
It's so incredibly important. Like I was, like I said, I've been in the industry for 15 years. I did not do my first educational thing for others until 2017. I hosted a workshop. It was called Master the Light. Honestly, it was probably still one of my most favorite things I've ever done. And a lot of my now photographer friends are from that workshop because they were attendees.
Yeah.
But it was just a workshop where I just taught about natural light, because that's what I was known for back in the day, was how to really like manipulate it and use it. And so I taught that, but that's all I taught. I didn't teach anything else. I didn't do these workshops where I'm teaching on all these different topics that I don't feel confident on because you think that there's a demand for it. No, I just taught natural light because that's what I'm good at. And that's what I knew I had enough knowledge to teach. So it's a scary world. I've spoken with my friends about that. We've had so many conversations. I wish that there was a way to regulate it, like actual legal regulations, because you think of a hairstylist, you think of, a nail tech, for example. They all have licenses, literal licenses, and then they educate, but they have licenses to do what they do. Photographers don't have licenses.
Oh yeah.
Videographers don't have licenses. Like, no wedding vendor has a license. And honestly, I kind of think that there should be at least some sort of something, certificate, whatever it may be, because these people are just jumping in, like I said, doing, 30 weddings and being like, all right, I can teach. I got it. Like I can tell you everything that I've learned in my 30 weddings or my 50 weddings. That's not enough. Like, that's not enough.
Talk to me about like the being like, I hear people get like pay to be in publications that then, and then now they're qualified because you pay to be
just a name.
In a magazine. Yeah.
And it's just a name. It's like, what are we doing this for? Like, we're not serving real people then. Like, you're half fake. Like, in my brain, I'm just like, you're half fake then. I don't trust you. But clients don't always know that.
Right.
It's just the photographers knowing the other photographers
they see
doing
the
it.
awards at the end, at the bottom of your website.
Right.
And you're like, cool.
Yeah.
The not certified or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's not even enough. Like, as far as like a regulation goes, like, I feel like that's not even enough. Like, there needs to be more, So it's a really tough, slimy world out there. I've been burned multiple times. I've learned so much. It's wild to me too. I think about things that I have done in the past in terms of the way that I communicated or educated for mentors, because I definitely did have like mentor sessions, and I can't even believe the things that I was saying and doing in those mentor sessions. And that was still, 8-9 years into my career.
Right.
So that just goes to show that you need so much longer between you being an amateur and a professional to get to the point to have those credentials to teach people, truly. Like, I think that if you just want to put an age on it, I mean, no one at least below the age of 25, that's not enough time.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of newbies, and it's fine. I know that there's a lot of young photographers and I love that. Like I started young too. I was 19. But that's not long enough.
Brains are not fully developed until
They're
you're 25.
not.
So figure it out,
whatever it's called,
the frontal lobe.
Yes, frontal lobe thing. Like that's not developed yet. So if that goes to show, like, yeah, like that, you just have to be patient. It's like a marination process, you know, like you need to learn from all of the mistakes that you are going to make because they're going to happen, and then take those mistakes and turn that into education.
Yeah,
but
that needs to be teachable moments.
Yeah, but you have to work long enough to like really get to that point.
I think, yeah, one season, even if you book 30 weddings or whatever your goal is, it's like, you only experienced 2024 weddings. You haven't experienced 23 or 25.
Correct.
Like you got to go through some hardships.
Really hard hardships.
To figure that out. You got to be at the lowest of lows and then bounce back to be able to teach people how to bounce back or how to grow. Because if you do great for 2024 and then book 7 next year and that's not enough to cover your bases, it's like,
correct.
Then you're faded out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that's sometimes even a question to be asking someone that you're looking to mentor you is like, what hardships have you gone through to reach these educational points that you are trying to teach me? And I think that mentor should be very transparent about where they have failed and what mistakes that they have made to get to this point. Yeah. You know?
I think there's also like location too is probably a big one. Like if you're going and learning from someone in Seattle, it's like their stuff might not even pertain to what Lancaster is doing.
That is actually
like the East
so
Coast.
True.
Like
that's a good point. I never even thought about that. That's a very, very good point because market is everything.
Yeah.
Like our market here is nothing like
the Pacific
West Coast
Pacific Northwest.
Oregon.
I'm like, oh yeah, let's just go to Oregon real quick.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You're set up.
Absolutely. It's so different. It's so different. So yeah.
And saturated markets versus unsaturated. Yes. I think you have an unfair advantage here in New York because it's like there's probably the same amount per, capita getting married, but like the photographers are way less than Philly or New York or LA. Like I can't imagine being a photographer or anyone in media in LA. I'm like, oh, you're just drowning. Yeah. I mean, just in general.
Absolutely.
I mean, actors in general probably drowning because there's just so many of them, but
well, I know the photographer market is too. Yeah. I definitely have friends and I've spoken with people. It is just like, it's just as saturated as here for sure.
Yeah. And so I feel like I'm a big proponent, and not only because I have a local organization, but I think there's value in learning from people in your market. Yes. Instead of going to Tennessee to have a little camp out with a group or something, it's like, what can someone go to the Poconos? Can we go to the Poconos for a little retreat? Right. And that's still like semi Pennsylvania market, I would say. Yeah. So like, I think learning from local professionals is huge. Just like you said with like Thomas, right?
Yeah, Thomas Beeman. Yeah.
Like you learn from him and he's in this area.
Yep.
And so
for sure.
I think, market definitely plays a role. And I think there's also in like the virality of coaches. Like, sure, you might find someone in Tennessee that's super good and you want to learn from the very best, but you're going to have probably like little to no follow-up with that person.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I mean, they might promise like follow-up sessions, but like, it's just not the same as if you could like drive to that person's house or studio or whatever.
Yes. You're just a number to that coach.
Exactly. And I mean,
you're just a dollar sign in their bank account.
Exactly. and we can talk about gurus of like, man, I have, I think the same like disdain or, just hesitancy as you of like, listen, they might not even have the clients that they're saying they do because you are the one, like if you were to buy their $1,000 course, you are their income instead of, them actually being in the industry. And that's why you have to vet them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like, and it's all exaggerated. None of it is actual. Like, let me see your literal bank account. Truly. That's what I want to see. Like, I want to know like what's going in and what's coming out, which I know is like, that's obviously like an invasion of privacy, but like, I don't know, like that's what I would want to know.
Some of them do just straight up say like, here's my bank account, here's a screenshot. And I'm like,
not seen that.
I don't know. I mean, they flaunt it in a non-humble way.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So, exactly. When money is used in that way, I think that's another place like where I get really just like irritated because that's what they're using as like the bait.
Yeah, that's the proof.
Why is that defined as success for them? Like, why can't it be something else? Like, why does it have to be, oh, I'm like a 6-figure business now? No, like sometimes it's more fulfilling to literally just finally be booking people that just are you, like that feel like you, that are your friends, that you're so fulfilled by having that time spent with them. Like, why can't it just be that sometimes too? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Because it's all about like the depth and like, I think a lot of people around here get that. It's like build depth with your people because that's what really matters. And you'll get word of mouth referrals that way that are just incredibly like high spoken of you versus, I shot at volume and I make 6 figures and I'm nearing, I have all these associate shooters like actually all over the world that handle weddings for me and all this stuff. And it's like, but then you're not actually connecting with that person in Texas. You're letting, the Texas person do that, but you're actually still getting paid for them. And that's part of business or whatever, but still like, you're not actually working with the person that wanted to work directly with your name.
Right. So, exactly.
I don't know, there's something to be said about that.
Yes.
Tell me more about like what you actually got burned of like in the wedding industry with like a retreat or something like that.
A retreat and many other things. I will not name names, but I decided in 2018 that it was time for me to up level myself and I was going to invest in education. And I'm pretty sure, I can't say for certainty, but that was probably one of the first things education wise that I'd ever really invested in. So I didn't really have anything else to compare it to.
How did you get to that point? I guess I don't know if I've ever asked that. Like, where did you get that you were like at a plateau?
I think I was. I actually remember using that word a lot. I'm just like, I feel like I'm at like a plateau level or like I can't get further. Like I was here, I live in Harrisburg and I wanted more work that was not here. I wanted couples that had more of like the extravagant, like detail focused, like funky weddings. And so I just felt like stuck a little bit. And I think I felt stuck with pricing at that time too, that it was going to be impossible to charge more money in this area. So I think it was like a collection of things, but like I said before, I was a hustler. Like I really hustled so hard and I was never happy or content with where I was at. I wanted the next thing. I had to keep achieving the next goal, the next step. And so at that point, I just was ready. I had been watching this organization, we'll call them, I don't know if they are now, but whatever. I was watching them for a bit and I was seeing some people that I know attending workshops and things and learning things. And I guess at that time I saw benefit in that and I decided to invest. So I went to my first workshop. I will not say where that was at, but I went to my first workshop and I went there. And long story short, I will kind of like try to cut this down, but my body knew that I wasn't supposed to be there, but I still pushed myself through the entire thing. It was a 2-day workshop. The second day of the workshop, I was having like literal physical body responses, like immediate, just like anxiety, immediate heaviness. And I didn't know why, and I didn't know what was going on. But I decided to just push through it and ignore it. Plus, a lot of my friends were also engaging with this organization. And so it was like the in thing to do right now. So I signed up for it, did my first workshop. I went home. And then I kept investing and I kept investing and I kept investing. And I don't remember the exact total of what I invested, but it was definitely near like $20,000, $25,000, somewhere around that. And I thought that it was like the god of all education spaces in the industry. Like I held this organization on such a pedestal because there were things, yes, that I was learning, that I was also then applying to my business. And yes, I was seeing success, but I was literally the worst version of myself that I have ever been. I hate who I was then. I lost a lot of friends, industry friends at that time. I think a lot of people were really turned off at how much I focused on money because this education space was all about money. Yeah. And I felt as though that's what I had to be to get to the next step. they would tell us that we would have to book those weddings that are going to, you know, spend $10,000 to $15,000 on photography, that I have to be showing up wearing Gucci.
Yeah, so I was going to touch on that if you didn't bring it up.
Yeah. And like, it's so gross because that
icky.
has never been me my entire life. I was the girl that was thrifting at Salvation Army and, you know, getting made fun of my outfits in high school because I was like funky and fun and like buying vintage clothing. That was who I was. I was not Gucci. I was not brand name. I don't even really like what brand name stuff looks like.
Yeah.
Low key. But, I all of a sudden like adopted this personality, and this personality was not me, and it screwed so much for myself. And I was hustling before that, but I was hustling even worse when I got into this organization. I literally was not stopping. Like my brain was constantly like this, like this, like this. I was just giving out more money to these people to teach me more and to teach me more, which ended up being a cult.
Yo, enjoying this episode? Please consider subscribing on YouTube or leaving a 5-star rating on Spotify or wherever you're getting your podcast. It really does help push out to more people, and we need more eyes on these amazing creatives that we are highlighting in this season of the Silo podcast. So if you wouldn't mind, leave a 5-star review on those platforms and a comment down below. Now let's get back into the episode.
There was a lot of, I would say, spoon feeding that was happening. So when you're in a cult, or if you're familiar with cults or watch documentaries, cult leaders know what their cultees or whatever, I don't even know what they would be called. They're little kids, like they know what they need and they're gonna keep giving it to you. So I was continually spoon fed validation and little ways where once there were 2 runners of this, like owners of it or whatever. And the one was constantly just giving me everything that I needed to hear to boost my ego, to completely boost my ego. And it's funny because we were taught in this workshop that in this organization, we were taught to drop the ego. That was one of their slogans, drop the ego, drop the ego, drop the ego. But what was actually happening is our egos were being filled up so largely from them that we didn't even realize that we weren't dropping the ego. We were growing the ego.
Yeah.
Because of them.
Yeah.
And so I finally maybe felt like I was like a part of something. And I think that just kind of connects back to like childhood trauma stuff. And I felt welcomed and I felt warm and I felt given everything that I needed. And so I just wanted to keep buying into it. But scam artists know how to do that. Con artists know how to do that. And they leech onto little kids like I was that don't know anything.
Yeah.
So how am I going to see? And now, don't get me wrong, like my husband, some of my friends, there were a lot of people in my life that were like, are you sure that you should keep investing in this? There's many red flags for me. I don't like this, especially my husband. He really, really did not like it at all. And I was not honest about how much money I was spending either. He did not know because I had the business account and he had the personal accounts.
Yeah.
And so I didn't listen to them. And that also was another sign of a cult. You don't listen to other people. Like you are in your head about it. You care about yourself and the leaders, and that is it. And so I didn't want to stop. Like I just was living for it. And like I said, I mean, I was having success in my business. Like I was taking approaches and things that I learned from them and applying it and actually booking weddings in California, in Miami. I was booking in these places that I wanted to actually
it's tough
be in.
It's tough to say no when you see it working, but then there's also the red flag of like, I do feel loved in this community, but I'm also paying to be there.
And
what
I'm
happens
sacrificing myself.
What happens if I stop paying? Is it like immediate, like, oh, you're not welcome anymore?
Yes. And it was kind of like that.
Right. And then it's just like, oh, so I'm just paying for friends.
Yes. And it I have to say this, like just a really good example. I mean, they had a Facebook group, and like if you weren't investing in their things and if you weren't active in this Facebook group, you'd get removed or you would get shunned or you would get told about yourself. You would randomly get a DM. Now, that did not happen to me. thankfully, but I don't know how I would have handled that. But people were just like dropped just like that because they were like, oh, well, you stopped investing in us. You weren't giving us money anymore. You must not really care about your business then. Like that's how they would talk to us.
Right.
What is that? Gaslighting? I don't even know what the correct term would be for that, but very manipulative.
Yeah.
And so that's why I felt like I had to keep investing because I didn't want to be like the bad kid.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like removed from the Facebook group,
Right.
you know? So
Some people say Silo's a cult. So take that information.
Are you being serious?
In the best way.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait a second. Who do I need to fight? Because this is not, no. Yours is such positive light.
No, we're here to take your money. the only people that listen to this podcast, you know,
right. You're right.
invest. That's all I've got to say. No, it's actually a running joke though that like, oh, yep, going to my cult meeting.
Oh my
You know, when we go to
gosh.
captures, we're like, oh, sorry guys, gotta go to my cult meeting. Can't go to whatever I'm doing else this day.
You guys are a community.
It's hilarious.
Very different from you're not charging $10,000 at the door to get in, are you?
I don't know. Did you talk to this other guy over here?
Yeah.
This guy just said he's 100K deep. That's right. Amen.
That's more than me, man.
You take out your wallet right now. You got some money to
I'll
pay.
Venmo you later. Okay.
Does Venmo even? Can you do like 10K over Venmo? That'd be crazy.
No, you cannot.
No?
No, you cannot.
Have you tried?
What?
Have you tried?
I've tried like 5K. You can't even do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good to know.
No, absolutely.
I'll have to try another thing to scam people. Tell me what you learned from like what, because obviously you were very invested in education and stuff then, but like, how does that change your whole mindset now? And what do you bring to the table now that's completely different from what you experienced?
I just chilled out, man. I just slowed down and chilled out. Like I stopped hustling. Like I am so anti-hustle culture. I think when we are submerged in it, it consumes us 100%. And like I said, my identity was, I think, stolen from me. Like I was not being myself in those years that I was in this. Lost the relationships, lost the connections, and COVID, so the leaders of this organization during COVID, they were exposed for things. And that is when all of this came crumbling down. So it was kind of nice because I didn't have to make the conscious decision to like physically remove myself. It just kind of did it for me because I did not like what was being exposed about these people. A lot of just like really problematic things, but then also lots of like past attendees with receipts of really bad stuff that they experienced with these people. And I had no choice. I was like, of course I'm done with this. Like, of course. But then it was still about a year or so of a journey of learning who I am apart from that. Where have I been? What have I learned from this? How can I move on? And I'm still struggling with it. I really am. It's a very like traumatic thing that happened. And it's a very pivotal point of my career because I mean, again, I lost myself and I feel like the couples that I had during that time, it wasn't the connections that I was having with people outside of those 2 years.
Yeah.
And now it is so wonderful to not be hustling and to really take my time with couples and with booking them and with them inquiring with me and to not be slimy or shady or scammy or trying to like make the highest sale. Like, I don't care if they're coming into my inbox being like, hey, like we only want 3 hours. That's amazing. That's awesome. And it's a prime date in September. That's fine. I will still take it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to be saying no, whereas we would have been told to say no and try for the next bigger thing. Like, the choices that I make now are so egoless, like actually egoless, instead of being so ego forward. And that's where my slogan for the people, not the portfolio, like really came in, because I just am so much for these people and advocating for these people that come into our world and into our orbit. Whereas before it was like, well, don't you want to do this? Like, don't you want to like go here to like this location? Like, don't you want to do that and do this? And that just wasn't me, like
Yeah,
at
you flew
all.
too close to the sun and like so many things. Like you just don't have to always go to the shiny thing.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that is what we were taught to do. We were even taught to like this was I still can't even believe that I did this, but we were taught to Instagram stalk. It was a method that they taught us to find venues that we want to work at, no matter where, and track couples that were getting married there if they tagged that location on their Instagram. And I did that successfully and got a wedding in Palm Springs, California, which then actually led me to multiple other weddings because of being friends with that family. But do you know how awful as a human being I felt doing that?
Right.
Disgusting. I would never do that today.
Yeah.
And that's perfect proof that was my ego leading me. Like, well, I want to work in Palm Springs, so I'm willing to do whatever it takes to work in Palm Springs. So I'm going to stalk this person. I'm going to just follow them and like send little DMs and respond to their stories until they ask me about myself.
Right. Be
And that
friends and be weird. Like, it's just like you're across the country. Why are you actually in my DMs?
And it worked, but I feel still so sick about it, like so disgusting about it.
Where does that leave you now? Because a lot of people want to know, you're past that phase of your life and now you're back just being really more authentic.
Yeah.
How does that impact what you're doing now? Like where are you at in 2024?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a human doing human things. Like I'm a mom doing mom things. I'm a friend doing friend things. Like my care now in this world after going through that and then going through personal trauma through the early 2020s, whatever you want to call them. I just value and cherish every moment that I get with people that I love, whether that's clients, whether it's friends, whether it's human beings. I have no other goals really. Obviously I'm always like operating in my business, but like my goal isn't to be like, oh, well, next year I want to make $200,000. Like what my old goals would have been has nothing to do with money now. My goals have nothing to do with money. My goals are to be just creating these one-of-a-kind, beautiful, authentic experiences for clients that are willing to pay my price, yes, because I know what I'm worth and I know my value, but that there are no questions asked and we are just an instant soul connection and we were placed to be together for a reason. And whether that is clients, whether that's friends, whether that's family, whatever it may be. And so my focus is slowing down and just spending as much time with people that I love as possible. And I know that sounds like basic or whatever, but like it's all that matters to me at this point.
You got me big smiling after that.
That's all I care about. All I care about.
What can you tell someone that's just starting out, like about like all that you went through? What is like a summary of that to a 22-year-old photographer that's like, I want to make it next year to be a full-time wedding photographer?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really important. It's hard. It's so hard because we go through our 20s so much. And like what we think at 21 is not what we'll think at 25 and from 25 to 27 and so on. So it's really hard to be like, hey, live in the future, kid. Like try to like figure out where you want to be at 30. So I think that some of my advice would be to do what I didn't do. And that would be to start out slow and let it to be a very slow burn instead of like immediately lighting your marshmallow on fire, which I do that. I don't know. How do you eat your marshmallows? Do you light them on fire?
Just mild, a little medium. Like if we were to compare them to like steak terms, I'm a medium.
Okay.
I'm a medium.
Okay. No, I completely scorched the thing. But I think that let yourself sit in the mundane, be okay with the slow seasons, be okay with all of your mistakes, track all of the mistakes, also track all of the positive things too that work really well for you, and just be very, very slow. Do not feel that you have to like be pressured into matching what everybody else is doing on TikTok and Instagram. Not even really Facebook anymore, because that's for the older people. But, like do not feel like you have to constantly be meeting this standard because somebody else's expectation standard may not be the same as yours. And that is something that I wish I would have learned earlier on. Yeah.
That's good. Now, by this point in the podcast, everyone has already stalked your Instagram and they want to know what you shoot on and like, how do you describe your style? But then also walk me through like what a photo like manipulation in Lightroom looks like for you.
So the manipulation, I'll start with that. The manipulation actually starts like with my eyeballs. It has nothing even to do with Lightroom.
Yeah.
I don't know, like I am just like a sucker, like a lover for, let's say we turned off all the lights in this room. It's dark outside. We don't have the outside light coming in, we'll say. And I have random lights set up in this room. And I have very cool like lightings in the studio.
Oh, by the way, this is
my studio.
This is Sarah's studio. We didn't even touch on that.
No, that's fine. You're good. And so I love being able to like prove people wrong kind of with what I can do with lighting. Cause I think that sometimes people, may look at a dark room and be like, well, I can't do that. Like that's just too dark. No, yes, you can. You absolutely can. Just take your time, learn your camera, learn the way that you like lighting and play with it and make something of it. Make art with it. So lighting wise manipulation, like it totally comes in person first. Gear wise, I'm using all like the R5. So like just like the mirrorless stuff. So for the longest time, I actually only shot one camera body with a 35. That was it.
35's good.
That was it. Yeah. But I didn't use a second camera body like for the longest time. And then back in like 2015, I remember talking with like some photographers. I had like a meetup at my house and they were like all like just like asking me. And I was just like, this is it, like right here. Like it was like sitting on the table and they were like, what? That's it? And I didn't know that was bad.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I need to get a second camera body? Like, I didn't know that I was supposed to be doing
You
this.
don't have a harness?
Yeah,
and
no,
you don't
no
have your
harness.
film camera around your neck too? And extra batteries in your pocket? What?
Yeah, right, exactly. So I was literally doing an entire wedding day on a 35. But I love 35 so much, and it really helps facilitate the documentary feel so much. I don't mind getting in people's faces. But see, back in the day when I was using the 20 or the 70 to 200, that's because I wasn't confident.
Yeah, you could just stand on the sidelines and go, whoop.
Nobody knows I'm here. But I love my 35. Ooh, do I love it. I've started renting the, like the cool, like 24 to 70 or whatever,
Sure.
28 to 70 or whatever
Oh,
it
yeah,
is.
that thing's a beast.
Okay, my wrists are dying.
Oh, well, that's true. That's
Like,
7 pounds right here and 1 pound on your camera.
Yeah, like I don't know if I want to buy it, to be honest with you.
It's
I've rented
scary.
it and I don't know.
It's expensive too.
It is
like even
ridiculous.
the 24 to 70, and then that is like an extra like 1,000 or 1,500.
Right.
Just
like,
for like f2 instead of 2.8.
Yes. And I think it's so trendy. I think that lens is so trendy right now. I think it's going to die off. Right now it's trendy because this documentary approach and look is so trendy right now, and that like film aesthetic. And so people want to be able to like zoom in and get like those motion blurs and like be able to like stand back and get 3 different angles within like a second. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is great. And that, like, again, if that's what they love, then that's awesome. But I miss being able to be intimate with my couples, especially like portrait time. Like I loved being able to just like get in there and get like the tears coming out and like getting the little like cracks in the faces and things. So I play around, and like this wedding season, I decided to bring out my 135. I have not touched my 135 in years.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, I have been having the time of my life.
Okay.
And really producing some awesome images
That's
with
sick,
my 135.
though. Because it's like we talk about this a lot on the pod. Like limitations are actually like an opportunity to like really mess around.
Yeah.
It's like a 135 on a wedding, like prime, is just kind of insane if you think about it as a normal shooter. You're like, 24 to 70, sure.
Right.
70 to 200 if you're like at the ceremony way back or something, sure.
Yeah.
But then like you go 135 and you're like, this is like weirdly in the center, a little too long too.
Yeah, I
but
know.
It
but
probably
there's
produces
time
amazing.
and place though for it. Like,
Yeah.
especially like outdoor ceremonies. I mean, it's been really awesome to just like get really unique angles that I'm not really ever able to get with a 35. So I don't know, maybe next season I'll be like, I'm over this now.
Yeah.
I need change. Like I need to like bring new things in to like
It's a
I
fun
think
little
keep
tool.
feeding like the artistic brain, and not just like get stagnant basically.
It's
So
a little trend in your head, you know? You don't have to be a part of everything else, but you're like, this is kind of fun.
It
right?
is.
You
I was
challenge
like,
yourself.
Yeah, I was like, I forgot that you existed in my bag. Which Freeman like uses the 135 sometimes, and he hates it.
Oh, really?
He hates it.
What does he not like about it?
I don't know. He sees different things in photography than I do. I think I have more patience for it because it can be like a little bit of a slower-ish lens and
Sure.
like not great in lower lighting at all.
Was it like an
and
F4 or something?
That may be 2.8 possibly.
Oh, that's 2.8.
I could be wrong. Again, I'm not like
I don't know.
great at like techie stuff, but I suck at it honestly. But he was using it in darker lighting, and so he would
tough.
be like, "I don't like this thing," and I'm like, "All right, okay, take the 50 then, because I'll have the 35." So yeah, so we have a 50 as well, and he generally is on a 50.
51.2 on
yeah,
R5.
Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah.
that's a
Which is really
masterpiece.
like creamy and beautiful,
Yeah.
and I wish I had a better relationship with it. I don't know, like I love it, but I don't know what it is about my 35. I just grab it all the time.
You know, I'm in the same boat. I think 35 is just a better focal length
Yeah.
than 50. I can tell immediately what a 50 focal length looks like
Yeah.
on anything. I'm
I
like, oh
know.
yeah, you're shooting on a 50 there. That's so easy to see. Like legit.
For sure.
Like I'm like, that's a 50.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
And like 35 is just like the perfect portrait.
It is.
I don't know. And you get to, you get to be closer, but like not, not
But
like
still
a
get the perfect
24 to
composition
70
though.
watt. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
I
it's
don't
like
know.
it's so clean. I love it. I can't
It's
get
great.
enough.
But tell me more like about like your editing situation, because Filmy is super in, but I think you just have like a really unique approach. And like, I just want to know, like, obviously you probably have presets that you either made yourself or have bought.
Yeah.
And we've talked about like the Lightroom, like, do you buy someone else's presets and call them your own kind of thing? That's a whole debate.
And then
I don't-
sell them.
Yeah, I don't
like
want to even
people
get in.
do.
I don't even want to get into that.
No.
But like, what?
Part 2 coming later.
Yes. Anyway, seriously, we could talk for hours.
Literally.
But what does post processing look like?
Okay, so I've been playing with presets for years, obviously. Before I bought presets. So like back in the day, there weren't actually a lot of presets to purchase. There really wasn't. Like you had the whatever, like pre-made ones in Lightroom that you get when you like download it. So I was kind of just like using those. And I still love actually my edits from my first couple of years of Lightroom work. I love it because it was very clean, true to color, a little bit soft, like a little bit of an etherealness to it. And it just was as is. Like it really was as is with like an exclamation point kind of. And so I, through the years though, got influenced very much by the trends. So fast forward to like 2017. I don't know if you remember, but blue highlights were the it thing.
Okay. I hear you.
The it thing. And I don't know who I thought I was switching my edit up to that. I couldn't even believe it. So I switched it to that. Then fast forward another couple years, I was like, no, this isn't doing it. It's not serving me. It's not really like embellishing my work in the way that I wanted to. And so I switched again and tried to go back to a cleaner edit. And it was lighter then. Then that edit ended up being lighter. And I was like, no, I'm not light and airy though. Because during the blue phase, I was dark and moody. Like,
Sure.
you know how people say dark and moody, light and airy?
Yeah.
I was dark and moody extremely. But I love my work from then. I just don't like the edit.
Yeah,
anyway, so then I went to this like a little bit lighter, airier, filmy feel. And then during COVID, I was like, I don't know who the heck I am anymore. And so recently, I, believe it or not, like sometimes people notice maybe, sometimes they don't. The client really never notices for the most part. But I am always playing with new edits. And they're my own.
Yeah.
That I'm always playing with. You could go from, it's 2024 right now. You could go from 2023 to today. And if you really know editing, you would see that I've changed it multiple times. But I don't care. Like I really, it's not extreme to the point where like clients need to be notified by any means at all. But how I mentioned, I love change. I can't sit in one edit, but I still have the same base and the same care. I really started to notice a couple years ago, whenever I was still doing like, I guess maybe like 2019, when I was still in and around the like changing of hues and the blue highlights and things, that I had a couple clients being like, hey, like the dress colors were not that like what's going on with that? And then I'd be like, oh, you're right. It wasn't that kind of purple. Why is that like pink? And then like the flowers, like why are the flowers not the color that they were a day of? And so then it made me, during COVID, when I was really reevaluating everything, I was like, oh, no. Like this, it needs to be how you see it.
Right. True to color.
True to color, 100%. And then remembering that when I first started, that's what I was doing. Like, that's how I was editing. And then I was like, Sarah, there you go again. Like, you were being influenced. Like, stop being influenced. You need to like just remove yourself from this industry. Like, just blind yourself of all these freaking trends. And so now the way that I edit, I mean, it is really an enhancement to nature.
Yeah.
I freaking love what nature has to offer. I love the shadows and the light and the texture. Like, it's yummy. Like, it's like candy for me, truthfully. And so when I am out like playing and like photographing, that I'm thinking of editing while I'm photographing.
Yeah. So your HSL is pretty straight.
Oh, completely pretty straight. Like, there is really, it may be almost like dead in the middle.
Wow.
Yeah, like I play more so with the like I down my dehaze pretty low. Not pretty low, but I would say somewhere around like 20.
Yeah.
And then my like clarity, what's the other one? It's clarity, texture. Oh, my texture is down.
Yeah.
And that is where I find the softness to my images. And really that gives me the opportunity to have that film look.
Yeah. What's the secret sauce? Like what panel is like that makes your piece? Like, is it like the HSL? Obviously that's pretty straight. Do you work a ton in the tone curve, like in the color curve?
I don't even touch it.
Don't touch it.
Don't even touch it.
Straight diagonal.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Yep. Literally don't even touch it.
Yeah.
Yep. I really just play with like contrast and all the upper portion of
the
Lightroom.
Basic or tab or whatever
that is in there. I do use, so like, it's basically like a Portra 400 preset. So like it is a film preset for the most part, but then I've completely adapted it and made it like my own thing. It's not the way that it is like whenever you just like put it on, but I don't know. I just find more rewarding feelings by doing that. And I achieve better results by just trying to keep it as is.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, I mean, you probably do most of it in camera, and that makes it.
I do,
you know, and that's what makes editing a lot simpler for you.
Yes, and actually, sometimes I think that I shouldn't do that as much though, because sometimes like I'm not saving the highlights in camera, but then I end up going to edit it, and I'm like, you know what? But I love this.
Yeah,
like I love just like being okay with it being messy sometimes. Like that's actually very exciting for me, and I like the photographers that I follow. I get very inspired by, there's this one specific wedding photographer, I think Ramona Wed possibly is her Instagram account, but she'll like post stuff that is like, it's film, but it is way overexposed. You may not even see the person's face, but there is like, there's like such an art to it and there's such a feeling to it that I'm like, oh, this is so good. This isn't just like basic cookie cutter stuff. Like this is like speaking to me because I love different. I just love anything different. So yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's a lot to learn about like what a seasoned photographer does in Lightroom, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you're either like super into HSL and like whatever that like very bottom tab is where you can shift the red, blues, and greens or whatever it is. Like way down at the very bottom. I don't even know what that's called.
I don't even really touch that either. Like,
you know, you get all these presets that from online and they're like strewn way over here with the red and then the blues like way over here.
But
and
then
you're
you
like,
can tell.
But yeah, and then you go and you try to adjust something normally and it's like, okay, you just changed the whole image.
Exactly.
And my white balance can't even compensate for how much blue is down at the very bottom tab or whatever. And so it's interesting to see like how refined you get over the years to go back to the basics. Because there's always, like, I think it's like a bell curve of like, start out with nothing. I don't even have a preset. I go super hard into presets up top. That's where everyone is. And my greens are the mintiest greens I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
And then you go back and you're like, I hate that there's so much color in here.
Yep.
And I also hate that there's so much sharpening in here.
Yeah.
And you just take it all away and you're like, I like film now.
Yep. Absolutely.
I'm actually shooting on film now.
Yep.
Actually
and barely editing it because it's just film straight out of camera.
Actually just shoot JPEGs now.
Literally, that's it. Just straight up.
Sarah, it's been an honor to have you on the podcast. It's been an honor to have you in your studio with us. That's super cool. And I just I want to plug your studio, so feel free. What can we say about your space? Because you should totally plug it. But
plug my studio. I got you.
What just came out of my mouth?
I got you. So this is my studio space that I use for boudoir. I also use it for like branding work as well if people want it. But it is a very cleanly well lit room. I would say, what is this, like 450 square foot maybe? Sure. I don't really know. And the light that comes in is the light that I love because I wouldn't do anything other than that. So if you book this in like an afternoon slot, you will have this all these 3 windows. You will have this soaking warm light, just sun literally pouring into the studio, creating a really cool shadow back there on the wall. So there is like so much to play with. I have tons of decor. I try to keep everything in here pretty neutral so people can like pick and choose what they want, kind of like you did like with like the setup.
Yes.
Because I don't want people to like come in here and be like, well, I don't want my images to look like the same as Sarah's stuff. Like I want there to be like room for exploration for them. So please rent it whenever. I do actually offer for people that have never booked here before at all to get portfolio work. I offer the first hour for free so they can book that through the link.
Got to.
That way, if they want to like book sessions in here, they have an example to show instead of just being like, oh, here's a random room.
Yeah. You got disco balls for days.
Oh, tons of disco balls, tons of light play. I guess they can't see this.
Oh, it's actually coming through right now.
See, it's starting to go
some
through.
Purple stuff.
I have pink disco balls.
Oh, wait, that is coming back there.
Yes, it is right there.
Come on.
Correct. Mirrors back here, candles everywhere. I have that light that's behind you, another light over here from IKEA that's really funky.
So cool.
And random things in the back that I wish more people actually grabbed from. They don't. I have like a whole box, a plate like a toy box.
Yeah. Crazy. Booker Studio. Thank you, Sarah, so much for coming on. Oh, this is so good. We could have kept going for another 2 hours.
10 days.
Maybe we'll be back. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Peace out, y'all.